Diane Eisnor, welcome to the Human Capital Innovations podcast.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I'm super excited to have a chance to chat with you. You have an interesting business, which we're going to be exploring together today. The name of your business is Core, and you're involved in construction labor marketplace, creating a construction labor marketplace, which is super interesting and fascinating. So I'm looking forward to hearing more about that and helping listeners understand more about what you're offering to the market in terms of this resource, but also some of what you've learned in leading your organization and some of the lessons that would be applicable for this audience. As we get started today, I wanted to share your bio with everyone. Diane Eisnor is a serial entrepreneur and the co-founder, CEO of Core, a newly launched construction labor marketplace supporting the construction workforce of the future. Third-time startup CEO, angel investor, and powerhouse female business leader, Diane comes from a family of tradesmen and truckers whom she finally gets to serve full-time. I think that's great. What a fun opportunity in this current company, in this current role to make a difference in the marketplace, and I look forward to the discussion. Anything else you would like to add by way of personal background or context before we really launch into the conversation?
No, not at all. It's been a wild ride.
Cool. Well, so let's start a little bit with that wild ride. If you could tell us a little bit about how you got to where you're at now, going from your previous organizations to now launching, a construction labor app and this construction marketplace. Tell us a little bit about how you got to where you're at and what that journey has been like.
It's interesting. It's you read a lot about leaders who have a pretty linear background. They studied computer science, then got their MBA at Harvard. There's a lot of this kind of linear path finding in the valley, but my path was, I think a little bit different in terms of obviously where I grew up. There's not a lot of us from Brockton, Massachusetts out here in Silicon Valley. Definitely not a lot of people with the kind of family that I come from, which is amazing. But like you mentioned, it's truckers and tradesmen and really kind of wonderful people, but very different than who we see day to day out here. I actually went to school for painting. I thought I was going to be an artist. Then I realized once I got to NYU that I was just a pretty mediocre painter, and I decided to pick up business. But there was always that two sides of, the very practical and pragmatic with the very creative and wanting to solve problems. And so it started there, and I started my first company right after college, and it was an interactive ad agency. It was the .com era. And I think I became addicted to the adrenaline of building something new, these new movements and industries. And I just love it. I love being a part of it. I love what I can contribute. And then as I got older, you develop more skills and you can contribute more. And I'm probably most known for my work at Waze. Waze is the navigation app, which your listeners probably know. And I started the US office of that company in 2009. And I was the only one here. It was just a few folks in Israel who had started it, and I loved what they were trying to do, their approach. It made so much sense technically and professionally. And I did that for 10 years. I ran growth. I created the platform. I created ecosystems with broadcasters to get Waze used on TV for explaining what was happening on the roads with the traffic segments. I started the program called Connected Citizens Program, which is something that really meant a lot to me. And this was our work getting our data, non-personally identifiable data, into traffic operations centers. So if we were amassing all of this great information, that it was really important to see how it could be used to do something better, like reduce congestion and improve emergency response times. So by the time I left Waze, we were in 800 cities, and I was struck by how little effort it took to make that kind of impact. Anyway, we sold Waze to Google. I was involved in integrating Waze into Google, stayed there for another 5 years after we sold the company, and I think really just learned a ton about navigating this other level of scale. So as an entrepreneur, you don't always get to tackle scale, you know, the kind of dollar volumes and user volumes. When I started at Waze, I think we had a couple thousand users. And when I left, I think we were at about 150 million. So it was really a great amount of learning. And so that was a privilege. Anyway, that's when I fell in love with cities, and I left to go start the cities division of WeWork. And that's where I encountered, well, okay, insert giggles, whatever. It was also its own ride. But that's where I was looking at integrating software and data with physical space, because they had offices in 110 cities. And the question was, how could we do more? So for example, if you have an ID that can be used to access your office, can it also be used to access public transportation? What else can you do to build community outside of the walls of WeWork? And that's pretty much what we were working on. We didn't do it very long, but it was enough to feel the pain of building physical spaces. The timelines, the labor shortages, the constant change. And we have constant change in software as well, but it's just, you can hide it better. So the scheduling nightmares, I just came face to face with a lot of those problems. And so after my team and I left WeWork, we thought, okay, first principles, we're not going with a whole bunch of money out. We need to focus on one thing. What should it be? We knew it would be in construction, but we just spent time talking to hundreds of workers at that time in GCs, and we figured we have to focus on labor. That's the number one challenge. It's a big global challenge, 180 million workers. And it's not just that there's a labor shortage, which is a huge problem in itself, but there's just so much friction in a worker finding the GC who has a project right now, and having access to clear training and career development. If I'm a carpenter now, how do I make sure I'm going to be a foreman then? Or, you know, how do I plan my career path? I just thought it would be really important to spend time doing that. So that's what we're doing. That brings us to Core.
Well, great. And my next question was going to be, tell us a little bit more about why you started Core. And you just kind of started to hit on that towards the end of your previous comment. But I'm wondering, is there anything else that goes into kind of those early stages of launching this new endeavor with your partner, and making those initial decisions to focus on the labor piece?
Yeah, at that time, we were having in-person conversations, we were doing surveys, we were doing a lot of research into what part of the problem could we help with, because we don't come from the industry, right? I come from that background, and so does my partner, but we haven't been in the industry, we've been in tech. So we wanted to make sure that we were putting ourselves in a position that we could use technology to be helpful, and that it was really something that was going to be benefiting an ecosystem. I love ecosystem plays. This is not like big bad tech company coming to disrupt the whole construction industry because we think we know better. This is, okay, we heard that you guys want this. These are the skills we have, and let's just go pull it off. But there was a time when we thought, well, are we going to go more in the education and training space? Is that where the real problem is? Are we going to go purely on the marketplace? Are we going to go more on, well, it's now what I call logistics for labor. But how do you make it easy for companies, a little bit more of a SaaS model, to bring in these new people to manage their existing teams? Because it's pretty wacky. Whenever these big guys, they win a job, and then it's almost like starting a new company for them. Who's going to be available to do the work? Who has the right skills? Even within their own organization, they often don't know because there are no good systems in place. And so what we ended up circling around and honing in on was, okay, my partner, he was at Google for 15 years and has 100 patents, and it's just, he's such a great thinker and innovator. So his idea was, something sort of similar to Google's PageRank, which I think everybody knows now, but worker rank. And then worker rank is not just to stack rank workers who's better than someone else, but for a specific project. What are the skills that are needed? What are the certifications, the training, but also the soft skills? And so the first piece of the platform we built is this really great matching engine that can take either candidates that are outside of your organization and match them to specific projects, or even people inside of your own organization where the information is kind of scattered about their skills and their availability and all of that. So it's really, step one was, okay, we're doing this matching algorithm and let's go build it, and we built it. And then of course, technology is one thing, but we've now had over 2,000 conversations with workers as they onboard onto the platform to learn what's important to them. So lots of talking.
Awesome. Yeah, that's really great. And can you so you talked about the matching algorithm. Can you walk us through a little bit more of what the app does and how this marketplace works?
Yeah, so there's the web and then there's the app. And so the web is really, you come in and you create a profile if you're a worker, but we make it really easy. So we vet the certifications that you give us, so we make sure that they're real. You can give your references that can confirm your skills, and we'll do all of that checking. You know, the things that I've learned are that people in this space, in the trade side, they don't promote themselves very well. So they might have a resume, likely they don't, but in the resume, they might not be giving the things that companies are looking for. And so in addition to getting all of the information from our website, we try to have a 5-minute phone call with every single worker. And we can pull out things like if they're great collaborators, if they, you know, are entrepreneurial, if they are, we can pull out all these other things, and they're just so free when they're talking about their skills. So we combine those, and that's all the data that's going in. And then we score everything according to what we know about all the things that are going to be, you know, take to make this job great. So for example, if somebody's hiring a general superintendent, which everyone's hiring general superintendents, the things that matter most are, what are the size of the projects you worked on before? What was the dollar volumes? That's how you figure out a good fit. And often this kind of information is not even on the resumes. So we just try to make sure that there's good data coming into both sides, and then the magic is the rest. And actually the technology is the easy part. Yeah. It's getting people to feel comfortable talking about their skills that's much harder.
Yeah, and I think that's generally a problem. There's some industries where it's not as much of a problem, but I would say across the board, the vast majority of workers across job types, across industries, don't do a particularly good job of conveying their skill set and selling themselves to the organization. And it doesn't at all surprise me that within the trades in the construction industry that would even be more of an issue. So that's great. I mean, you're doing the hard work of the fact that you call everyone and have that conversation, that alone is just such a ton of work. And it's so important, so you can flesh things out a little bit more,
yeah.
have a better picture of what you're actually dealing with. And I like that proactive approach too, because, you know, especially in areas where we have labor shortages, and construction and the trades isn't the only area, right? We have labor shortages in lots of different places in our economy. And so organizations are wanting, you know, they're needing skilled labor. They want people with the experience and with the credentials, with the hard and soft skills. And so they're willing, you know, most organizations are willing to put some money behind that because they know how much it matters to the success of their organization. The employee is that vital resource without whom they can't function, right? And, you know, in construction, obviously, you're not going to be building anything without the actual workers. And the same thing in IT, you need the technicians, the coders, and to be able to build the whatever you're dealing with, the software, and every other industry, right? So the people aspect is so vital. Matching up is so important. Fleshing out the skill sets is so important. I love that you're doing all those things with this service.
Yeah, so if you're a worker, you just come in, you complete that profile, you talk to us, and then you're in our system. And when we have jobs that match you, we just send it directly to your phone. So you don't even have to do, like, we're trying to take out the job search, because what happens is you end up spending so much time looking through things that are totally irrelevant for you. And so our platform has a big text and push notification component, and you're only going to get notified if we think something is relevant to you. And then the same on the company side. So the company will get their job description in, what role they're looking for, and then they're only going to get a list of candidates that we think are highly relevant for that. So you're going to have fewer candidates and fewer job lists, but we're trying to just save people time and make them better lists. So what we do for the companies is we actually give them the score for that particular job too, and then companies are able to give us a score back. So if we say somebody is an 85 and the company comes back and says they're a 90 for this role, then we learn something from that. Or if we think they're a 90 and they say, oh, that's a 65. So we've learned in that process, what are the gotchas for every single one of these different trades. And obviously we're still learning, but that goes into this big data stockpile that's helping us make those really good connections.
Yeah, that's great. So you've had such a successful career, a serial entrepreneur. You've worked, in small businesses. You've worked in large corporations. You talked a little bit about the scale up and how difficult that is. Tell us a little bit more now just about CORE as an organization and as an organizational leader. How many employees do you have? What types of challenges have you had as an organization as you've been trying to build out and scale yourself?
Yeah, this is an interesting one. So almost everybody on our team I've worked with in the past, or someone has worked with someone else. So we're only a team of 7. And like I mentioned, my CTO, we worked together at Google, and then he came to be the VP Eng at WeWork, and now we're excited to do this together. Our head of operations, Jenny, who's also a co-founder, I've worked with her for 6 years at Waze and Google and this, and then one of our key engineers who decided to join us, we also worked together at WeWork, but he sold a company to Dropbox. He was early at PayPal. We have a small team of people that we always joke that it's not our first rodeo, and we've done this all together. And, I'm often conflicted about that, because it definitely, we know how to work together. We're executing very, very well. And that's one of the ways to mitigate risk in a startup. There's 100 reasons we could fail or more, but it won't be because our team executes really well together. And so I feel like I've learned a lot about knowing if someone is going to be great at their role and making sure everybody gets to do the thing that they love and that they're really good at, and that they have a team of superstars around them that they're going to respect the opinions of that person. Because one of the worst things when I had earlier companies is when one member of the executive team doesn't trust the other member. If marketing doesn't trust technology, doesn't trust sales, it's a mess. You're wasting too much time fighting against each other. So for me, it's really so much about the team. And, now we're still in, seed stage, right? Which means we raised our first round of funding. It means that we don't have product market fit yet. It means we're still building everything. We're building the car while driving. And so you have to reduce the risk as much as possible. That said, I've been trying to build relationships and to make sure that we're interviewing people that are outside of our domain, that next generation of people who we haven't worked with before, that come from the trades, that our team is pretty diverse too, but it could be more diverse, right? How are we going to get those candidates in? And so I think a lot about the diversity of the team, and that always makes for a better team, because you can just have better thought partnerships, you can solve bigger, more complex problems. So that'll be the next thing. But for now, it's like, I didn't take any chances. 7 people. And then we have, a few engineers, front-end engineers are in Russia. And, we have a call center that's helping us handle some of the volume of all these conversations with the workers. So we're kind of starting to outsource what we can after we know what the process has to be. But it's just small right now, and all that.
So how has that experience been, either in previous roles where you've been in these small startups and now, you know, when you're in that same kind of situation versus being at like a Google, massive corporation? How have you navigated those differences?
It's funny, they all just kind of fuse together. I mean, at this point, you know, I've done this a few times, not always successfully, but I know the stages, right? And I know how to set expectations. And I think setting expectations is something that I didn't do as well in my earlier parts of my career, right? Like I would say, okay, I would actually think that the first iteration of a product you put out, people would love. Like, what was I thinking? Of course not. I underestimated, for example, the amount of feedback and the amount of iterating and learning. And so now I feel like, all right, I know I have a pretty good sense of what are the expectations for this stage of my company. When should we be thinking of revenue? When should we be thinking of users? How are we getting the information? How do we know if we're doing well or not? And so I feel like that setting of expectations is the thing that gets better and more honed over the course of my career. And, you know, I hope that this is a company that's going to go successfully from seed to product market fit to scaled revenue. And that now that I've been all across the board, I hope that I'll just be able to navigate and set those expectations appropriately so that we build something really valuable and really important.
Very cool, very cool. As we get near the end of our time here together today, I did want to give
you that's such a bummer. This is fun, actually, talking about
well, good. Yeah, I've been enjoying it too. I've been enjoying not only getting to know you a little bit more, but getting to know your company and just being able to talk through these types of issues that, you know, we're clearly both passionate about. And perhaps we can continue this discussion again another time, and you can come back on and share with us, you know, as you continue to move through the stages and roll things out further. But before we part today, I wanted to make sure I gave you time to give the last word and to share with listeners how they can get connected with you, find out more about your company, and anything else that you would like to share.
Great. So you can go to the web. It's bycore.com, bycore.com. If you are in the trade, thinking about the trade, please come give us a shot. Obviously, everyone in construction, we want your feedback. We'd like you to be in. And then in terms of last word, I just want to say something is interesting is happening in the human capital sphere, where I feel like, do you remember in the 80s or 90s when the military, the army started doing all these commercials, and the marketing didn't make you think that you were fighting or going to war. It was like, I get to fly a jet. Yeah. I get to wear an invisibility cloak. I feel like the construction industry is getting smarter. It's about to be really cool to be in construction. You know, we've got autonomous excavators and inspectors get to have drones. I feel like it's right for a whole new group of people to make this an awesome career opportunity for themselves. And I hope they do. And it's on people like me and others in the industry to make sure that their career path is there and that the money and incentives continue to grow so that everybody can be happy here. It's a good alternative.
That's excellent. And I love that framing of the evolution of the industry and the role of technology in kind of transforming the skill sets that are needed, and really just the sexiness of being, you know, in the trades and being a construction worker. And, you know, in a previous life, long ago, I did have some time where I was working in the construction industry back long before anything that you're talking about, you know, in terms of drones and any of that kind of stuff. But even then, like it is a rewarding line of work because you're building and you get to see in real time. Exactly. Yeah. It's incredibly satisfying to be able to see the fruits of your labor and that you've built this thing, right? And you put on top of that all this cool technology and the new skill sets that are driving the shifts in the industry. And it really is a great career path for people. And so it's important for organizations to recognize that. It's important for the labor force to recognize it as well. So I applaud you for the work you're doing in your company, and thank you so much for joining me today. I hope listeners will reach out, get connected, find out more about what CORE can do for you. And And as always, I hope everyone stays healthy and safe, that you find meaning and purpose at work each and every day. And I hope you all have a great week.